Now, this is one question I did have for Chris. It can translate to you just as well. You were talking about A.J. McCarron, the quarterback for Alabama. Does he need to have the game of his life, or does he need to really make big plays, or does he just kind of need to distribute the ball around and be a little bit of a traffic cop for this game?
Well, what he's got to do, Eric, is he's got to show enough, be enough of a threat to keep LSU from stacking the box against Trent Richardson. And the quicker that he can distribute the ball wide or push the ball deep, and the more he can get the safeties to respect that, the better it will be for Trent Richardson. They don't. And the other thing I would say about McCarron, Eric, is he doesn't have to win the game. You just don't want him to lose it. For a young quarterback, it's the old physician's thing: first, do no harm. So that's incumbent upon him. And then the better that he can push the ball downfield and get the defense to respect him, the better it will be for Trent Richardson.
I was going to ask you about Trent Richardson, and apparently we have a question from a fan concerning the Heisman candidate. This one, let me read this out. This one comes from Michelle McNaughton. Thank you for sending in, Michelle. Do you think LSU's defense has an answer for Richardson's run game? What do you think? Does LSU's defense have an answer to it? And is this kind of like Trent Richardson's Heisman type game? Is this where he comes up big?
Well, it would certainly help him, absolutely. And I think LSU does have an answer, and the answer is the corners, Morris Claiborne and Tyrann Mathieu. If they can handle Alabama's wide receivers without help from the safeties, and they've handled just about every receiver without help from the safeties, that will allow the safeties to get into the box and deal with Trent Richardson. So it's not just A.J. McCarron, it's also the Alabama wide receivers against two really, really good cornerbacks. I've already recorded tomorrow's podcast with Todd McShay, and we were talking about the NFL prospects on both teams. And Todd pointed out that Morris Claiborne, the older of the two LSU corners and probably the less well-known, is one of the top prospects in the NFL draft for next April. And yet all anybody can talk about is the Honey Badger. So they've got two really good corners. And that, those guys are going to have a lot to say about how well Richardson does.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Good point. Got another question from a fan. Bring it on if you guys can. Here we go. Jimmy Wright asks the question, with so much focus on the defenses of both teams, which player on the offense will make the big play? Jimmy asks. What do you think, Ivan?
I have no idea, Jimmy. Trent Richardson's a big play guy. Marquise Mays at Alabama's a big play guy. Ruben Randall, the LSU wideout, against probably Dre Kirkpatrick in the Alabama secondary will be a great matchup, as important as the ones I talked about when Alabama has the ball. I suspect it will be one of those guys on offense. But given how good these defenses are, I fully expect somebody on defense on one side or the other to make a play that will really turn the game.
Yeah. One of the things I was thinking about, Ivan, is sometimes LSU seems to get a little bit too vanilla, maybe, I guess, or maybe it's just all of my relatives in Louisiana that are complaining to me about that. But it seems like they do. Do they need to get kind of piggybacking on that last question from Jimmy? Does LSU need to get Russell Shepard and Ruben Randall, of course, and maybe even like Jordan Jefferson more involved in the offense? Do a little bit more gadgetry with those guys, or just go to them a little bit more this week, you think?
Well, they're certainly not as vanilla as they were last year, and I think that's one of the best benefits of bringing in Steve Cragthorpe is that they're not run on first down, run on second down, pass on third, and that was their biggest problem certainly last year. The other thing you got to think about, Eric, is given that they've had 2 weeks to prepare, I expect both offenses to come out with things that nobody's seen before, and probably more than normal because they have more than 3 days to prepare. But I don't expect a whole lot of vanilla from either offense because I don't think vanilla against these defenses will work.
That's a good point. Now, that actually carries into another thing I was going to ask. Going a little off the grid of what we talked about prior to, though, was which coach, this is just kind of a fun question, a fun question that'll get the one of the two fan bases angry. Which coach would you rather have in a big game atmosphere, Saban or Miles? And in this sense, which coach would you rather have on your sideline, would you say?
Oh, man. Well, they both won national championships, so they've both been successful. I don't know how you pick, really. What's great about the two of them is diametrically opposite their approaches are. Les Miles has kept this team loose. Certainly early in the week, they were really loose. And Nick Saban's all about building up so that they are have a razor sharp focus Saturday night. It's a little after 7 o'clock local time. Saban's much more businesslike. Miles is much more Miles-like. You could go broke trying to describe Les Miles. So, but the bottom line is they've been big in big games. So I don't think you can make a bad pick there.
All right, we have another question from somebody calling in about it, concerning the coaches. From looking at my screen here, Mr. Clint Davis asks, who do you think will be more anxious / excited this week, and do you think it will cause that team to make mistakes? Which team do you think? And it's kind of interesting what you say about Miles has his team kind of like loose, like maybe like Barry Switzer used to do with his teams, and it always seems like Saban is so wound so tight. So which team will be more anxious coming into this game, and do you think it will cause some mistakes and make maybe the big play that changes things?
I think that both will be anxious early because of the buildup. I mean, Chris Lowe, who is not here, said on our podcast earlier today that Alabama players told him they've been ready to play this game for weeks. And it's like, don't tell Coach Saban that. But of course they've been ready. I mean, we've all been looking forward to this game for weeks and weeks. But given the amount of experience certainly on the Alabama defense, I don't expect them to flip out. And given that LSU has so much talent and a fifth-year quarterback who's seen everything. I mean, Jarrett Lee has, played young, been benched, come back. He's so much better now. He's so much cooler back there. He's not trying to make the big play every time he winds up the throw. I don't expect that this game's going to be decided because somebody is anxious and going to make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. We'll kind of wind it down a little bit here, but give me Ivan, give me your, like, an X factor to the game. What do you think will be? I know a lot of things will decide it in the end, but what do you think will be the X factor that could change this game between these two similar teams?
Eric, I'd say special teams, and I think LSU has an edge in special teams. Brad Wing's been a find as a punter. And yes, Marquise Mays has been a great kick returner at Alabama, but Alabama's had a little trouble covering kickoffs this year. LSU's always good in special teams in the return game. I think that is an edge that may be enough to counter Alabama's home field edge.
And all right, well, off of that, let's give us your X factor player. Who's going to be the one player on either side of the ball on either team that will have the biggest impact, you think, in this game? Or is it just kind of too tough to tell?
If I had to pick one, gosh.
Yeah.
I would say Courtney Upshaw at Alabama, and he's got 4.5 sacks. He's sort of that, in that 3-4 defense. He can, he's either an outside linebacker, defensive end. He's been really, really good this year on the best defense in the country, and I think he's going to make something happen.
Yeah, well, this is as big as it gets, obviously. Now, it's going to be an exciting game, and I know, Ivan, you're going to be down there for that. I can't wait to read what you have coming out of this game, and just going to be an incredible atmosphere. So You guys, I think what we're going to do is we're going to wind this down now, but again, we're going to come back next week, do it again. Sorry for some of the late start and some of the technical problems we had. And Ivan, of course, being the reigning champion now. Thanks for coming in, Ivan. Appreciate it. Have fun down there in T-Town and give us a good report back. So until next time, for Ivan Mazel up in Fairfield, Connecticut, I am Eric Sorensen in Los Angeles. Thanks again, you guys. We'll see you guys next week.